He had one chance to answer, and the entire Senate room watched him say nothing. Senator Warren placed a document on the table in front of her. She didn't explain it yet. She just put it there. That document was going to end the exchange, but Hegseth didn't know that yet. This wasn't a disagreement about policy. This was about a $500 million financial move, placed 14 minutes before a presidential announcement that only the people inside the war room knew was coming. And one of those people was Pete Hegseth. But the $500 million bet was only the surface, because underneath it, there was a phone call. A call that someone made before the war started to one of the world's largest investment firms, asking to buy millions of dollars in defense stocks. That call came from Pete Hegseth's personal broker, and here's the part you won't hear in a standard news report. BlackRock flagged that call internally, which means even BlackRock's own team thought something was wrong. Let's go back to February 2026. No official announcement had been made about Iran. No vote had been taken. The public had no idea what was coming, but someone did. A broker at Morgan Stanley, Hegseth's personal broker, made a call to BlackRock. He was asking about one specific fund, the Defense Industrials Active ETF, a fund that holds Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, the companies that build the weapons used in war. The broker wanted in millions of dollars worth. BlackRock flagged the request internally, and the deal never closed. Not because anyone stopped it, because the fund wasn't yet available for Morgan Stanley clients at the time. They tried. The timing just didn't work. Think about that for a moment. The investment didn't fail because it was illegal. It didn't fail because someone in government intervened. It failed because of a technical availability issue. The fund simply hadn't opened yet to outside clients. What would have happened if it had been available? That question never got an official answer. But the events of the following weeks made it impossible to ignore. Because the war the brokers seemed to be anticipating, it happened. The defense stocks the fund held, they moved. The companies that build the weapons being used in that war saw their valuations shift, and someone somewhere was positioned to profit from all of it. Now here's where it gets stranger. Weeks later, on March 23rd, something happened in the financial markets. Someone placed a $500 million bet on oil prices. 14 minutes later, Trump posted about the Iran situation. The markets moved immediately. The people who placed that bet made a fortune. 14 minutes, not days, not hours. 14 minutes. The people who moved that money knew exactly when to move it. They knew before the press, before the markets, before the public statement was even written. That level of precision doesn't happen by accident. There is a word for when someone with access to information no one else has uses that information to place a financial bet before the public finds out. It's not a complicated word. It's not a legal technicality. Everyone in that hearing room knew what it was called. The question that followed was the one no one in that room wanted to answer. Who knew? And who told them? Senator Warren had been building this case for weeks before the hearing. She sent formal letters. She demanded documents. She went to the Securities and Exchange Commission. She co-signed investigations with 4 other senators. This was not a spontaneous moment. This was a calculated approach, built document by document, letter by letter, for weeks before Hegseth ever sat down in that room. Every question she was going to ask had already been put into writing. Every piece of evidence had already been entered into official correspondence. By the time she walked into the Senate Armed Services Committee on April 30th, 2026, the record already existed. The hearing was the final step. Hegseth was there to talk about the defense budget. The official topic was money, troop funding, weapons contracts, a $1.5 trillion military request. That was supposed to be the story of the day. But Warren had a different document. She waited. She sat through the standard questions. She let the hearing build its rhythm, and then her turn came. She didn't ease into it. She opened with the soldiers. 14 dead. More than 400 wounded. Prices rising for every American family. She said the cost of the war in human terms. Not budget lines, not spreadsheets. Then she turned directly to Hegseth. But someone is profiting off this war. The room tightened. She walked through the February call to BlackRock. She described the broker. She named the fund. She described the $500 million bet and the 14-minute window. And she didn't rush any of it. Each fact landed separately. Each number sat in the room before the next one came. That's what made the exchange different from a standard political argument. She wasn't building toward a speech. She was building toward a question, and the room knew it. You could feel the shift in the air the moment she stopped listing facts and turned to face him directly. Then she looked at him and asked the one question that had no safe answer. "Do you have any explanation for this, aside from insider trading?" Hegseth did not answer the question. He said, "I don't know what you're looking for, but you ain't gonna find it." That was it. Not a denial of the timeline, not an explanation of the BlackRock call, not a single fact placed against her facts, just a dismissal. And in that dismissal was something important. Because when a senior government official responds to a financial allegation with, "You ain't gonna find it," that is not an answer. That is a posture that says, "I'm not going to engage with what you're asking because I don't have to." But Warren wasn't finished. She reached for the document she had brought into the room. Pete Hegseth's own ethics agreement, the one he signed when he was confirmed, the one that stated he would personally approve any defense-related investment his broker attempted. She asked the committee chair to enter it into the congressional record. The chair asked if there was any objection. There was none. That agreement now sits permanently in the official record of this hearing. Every investigation that follows starts there. Every subpoena, every inquiry, every future question begins with that document. The man who claimed he didn't know what his broker was doing had signed a form that said he would know. He didn't just sign it as a formality. He signed it specifically because his role gave him access to classified information about military operations. The agreement existed because of how much he knew, and because of how dangerous that knowledge could be. In the wrong hands, at the wrong moment, connected to the wrong financial transaction, he signed it. She entered it. And the room had nothing left to say. Now here's what most people missed entirely. Warren didn't ask a hard question and walk away. She built a legal structure around the moment before Hegseth could even respond. Think about what that means. He dismissed her in the room. He ran out the clock. He waited for the cameras to move. But you cannot dismiss a document you signed yourself. You cannot dismiss a formal SEC investigation, and you cannot explain away a $500 million bet that landed 14 minutes before an announcement only the war room knew was coming. The dismissal in the hearing room wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the next chapter. Here's the detail that makes this different from a political fight. The Secretary of Defense knows things the market doesn't. He knows before the public, before Congress, before the traders. That advanced knowledge, acted upon, is exactly what insider trading means, and the law on this is clear. Officials at that level of defense are banned from buying stock in the companies that hold the largest defense contracts. Lockheed, Northrop, Raytheon, Boeing. The fund Hegseth's broker tried to buy holds every one of them. So the call to BlackRock wasn't just unusual, it was potentially illegal. After the hearing, Warren sent a formal letter to the SEC chairman. She named the fund, named the timeline, named the conflict. The Secretary of Defense, she wrote, may have misappropriated top-secret military information for personal financial gain. That letter is also on the record now. The Pentagon called the Financial Times report entirely false and fabricated. The Financial Times stood by every word, and in that gap, between denial and documented sourcing, the investigation is still open. The Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on April 30th was supposed to be about budget numbers. Hegseth walked in to talk about wartime strategy and military funding. Warren walked in with a signed document and a financial timeline that drew a straight line from his broker's phone call to the most consequential military decision of the year. Hegseth said she wouldn't find anything. She had already found it. She entered it into the record before he could finish his sentence. The room didn't erupt. It didn't applaud. It went quiet, and in that silence, a document signed by Pete Hegseth became part of the permanent congressional record. He signed it, she entered it, and now it stays there, long after the hearing ended, long after the cameras left, long after Hegseth said there was nothing to find. Some things don't disappear when the room empties. Some things get louder. The 14 minutes are still 14 minutes. The BlackRock call still happened. The ethics agreement still sits in the record, and Hegseth still has no answer for any of it.